car meditation. So as I'm leaving the gas station, guy stops me, asks me about Fight for Your Life. And I was explaining it to him or whatever, keep this pretty short. And so he was saying he wanted to start like a clothing line or whatever. And I said, well, man, yeah, man. I said, do it, man. I said, world needs more people, doing new and innovative things. I said, it's going to take about a year, just to, figure out your marketing and everything. And he was like, what? I said, yeah, it's going to take like a year, just to master like the marketing aspect and, marketing ways, and I said, because depending on what your design is or what clothing line you're trying to start, you got to figure out a way to market it. And I said, so you're going to be, throwing things at a wall trying to make them stick. There's no really concrete way to market. I said, as much as people tell you, I said, you got to figure out what works for you and your brand and what you're doing. And he said, man, yeah. I said, wow. I said, it's the long game, bro. I said, you want to stay in the game or you just trying to, make some stuff, I said, because if you just trying to make some stuff, just make some stuff and throw it on out there. But I said, if you're trying to be around, make some money off of it or be lucrative or grow in it, I said, it's going to take like a year. And it dawned on me while I was talking to him. I'm like, man, nowadays, no one thinks of the long game. They may act like they do or say they do, but no one thinks of the long game, man. Like, you got to think of what's coming behind you, It's like, and I noticed it a lot more with, like, my children, and then younger generation in general. They don't think of people that come behind them. They do everything for themselves, and it got to be quick and fast. And life just don't work like that, and it's, accountability partially our fault because, we cater to their change instead of teaching them how to grow within the world of change. So when you think of the long game, you think of things like, I'm not just going to leave this way because someone could come behind me, or I'm not just going to do this way because someone could come behind me, and you go into things with the expectation of like, man, I got to put the work in. But if you can't think like that, or if you don't think like that, or if you just think instantly, then what you're doing is basically putting yourself on a hamster wheel, or always being there having to jump and roll and run, and you'll never get nowhere. And then it's like you're not setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up to just always find the next thing, and then it fizzle out. So, going into anything, you got to know that, like, even with like school, man, time has it's like, that's, I get it now. I get it when we in a world where you can ChatGPT your life away. But it's like, even with school, it's like you have to know that when you sign up for college, it's like 4 years and 6 years and sometimes 8 and sometimes 9 or 10. When you sign up for a certification or a licensing program, it's this many months. So we got to get back to teaching people that they have to have endurance for things and for life. And also that they have to know that, like, there's a long game to life. How you want to start a company and you can't think that it's going to take a year to do something. It's going to take a year. A year ain't long. A year go by pretty fast. Just think about it. When you were younger, years went by really fast. And now that we're older, years go by fast as well. So it's like a year is nothing to put some time into something that you want to do. So, I don't know. Think of the long game, people. Think of the long game. With any and everything you do, fight for your life.